Welcome. This is our ongoing series of webinars on global solidarity that we've been putting together once or twice a month. We're very fortunate tonight to have Father Kevin Conroy join us from Cambodia. He's a Maryknoll Associate priest. He's from the Cleveland Diocese. He has a PhD in clinical counseling and history in working with social work and other pastoral programs. He's been in Cambodia for, about a dozen years now?
14 years.
14 years, I was close. 14 years in Cambodia. Some of you have had the opportunity to visit him there, including Rosina, who was on our immersion trip to Asia last fall, and got a chance to see him. I've also been very privileged to be able to see him in the field and see the amazing work. Lots of different things that he's been involved with, but tonight we're going to be focusing on his main ministry around mental health and the outreach there in Cambodia. He'll give us a little bit of a background, but for those of you who may be familiar, Cambodia's history is unique in the sense that it was the site of a genocide with the Khmer Rouge, which pretty much took them back and wiped out all of the social systems and education system and networks. So it presents a unique situation. So without any further delay, let me turn it over to Kevin, and thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's 7 o'clock in the morning there, so he is got energy that some of us who are dealing with the evening here on the West and the East Coast don't have. So we welcome you and thank you for joining us.
Buenos dias. Good morning. I present our cross. I guess Jesus was trying to get in here today when I just heard this noise, okay? This is a Jesus of the that we have here in Cambodia. As you can see the cross there, and you can see the one leg is shorter. It's because it's to symbolize the fact that we have so many landmine victims that have lost their leg, and so Jesus is identified with the landmine victims here in Cambodia. So he just made a noise as I started this presentation. So let's say a Hail Mary, okay? Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed are you among women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Amen. Well, good morning, everybody, and greetings from Cambodia. I'm very happy to be here with you today. And this is my first time doing this, okay? So I hope we can do the best we can, and we'll do the best we can. I'd like to start with a reading today too, okay? And let me see here. I'm gonna do screen sharing. Screen sharing, right? And then I wanna share this, okay? And there we are, let's see here. Now I wanna close everything out, okay? Okay. They came to the other side of the sea, to the territory of the Gerasenes. When he got out of the boat at once, a man from the tomb who had an unclean spirit met him. The man had been dwelling among the tombs, and no one could restrain him any longer, even with a chain. In fact, he had frequently been bound with shackles and chains, but the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles smashed, and no one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and on the hillside, he was always crying out and bruising himself with stones. Catching sight of Jesus from a distance, he ran up and prostrated himself before him, crying out in a loud voice, "What have you to do with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I adjure you by God, do not torment me." He had been saying to him, "Unclean spirit, come out of the man." He asked him, "What is your name?" He replied, "Legion is my name. There are many of us." And he pleaded earnestly with him not to drive them away from that territory. Yeah. I love that reading today, okay? I really do. For me, it summarizes, it was like an aha moment when I saw that reading. When I said, these are the people that we work with sometimes. You know, not all the time, but these are the people that we meet in our ministry here in Cambodia. And we meet them in their home. We meet them at their place. And this is an actual chain of one of the people that we've unchained in Cambodia. And she was chained for two weeks this time with this chain. I have this chain in my room here. And this chain just reminds me, it's like a symbol of what we're trying to undo for many of the people that we work with in Cambodia. And our sickest that we have in Cambodia. And this is, these are, by the way, the people I've shown you so far are all neighbors. This is like one neighborhood, okay? And in one village or one little area of one of the provinces we work in. And this is what it's like to get to that province, to get there. And I'm always admiring the, how would I say, the stamina of our team who goes to these places when it's pouring rain, and I helped a little bit move our van out of the way there too. Okay, mental health around the world. Okay, 450 million people live with mental health problems at any one time. Depression, leading cause of disability worldwide. Mental disorders are responsible for more than 10% of global disease, a burden. In the last line there, it says, in low-income countries, between 76 to 85% of the people with mental health problems will receive no treatment. Mental health services in Cambodia, the timeline. From 1935 to 1972, one psychiatric institution with 2,000 residents before it was destroyed during the Khmer Rouge. From 1972 to 1994, no government mental health services or training available. For a country of 15 million people now. 15 million people. In 1994, we got funding for 10 psychiatrists. Then this one organization, Social Services of Cambodia, was born. In 1995, the Center for Child and Adolescent Mental Health established. That's a Caritas program. Another NGO was established in 1995. By 2006, we had a total of 26 psychiatrists and 40 psychiatric nurses and 150 medical doctors who had got basic mental health training. 2008, the social work departments established in Cambodia. And in 2008, I would say the other thing is, in my next slide, I'll show you this. I helped co-found the Masters in Clinical Psychology and Counseling. I'm proud of that, okay? I really am, okay? And I just think it's so important. 2010, the government reported 600 nurses and doctors and had 3-month training. These are just normal doctors, okay? You don't see the word social worker, you don't see the word psychologist in this, right? 2016, the Maryknoll Mental Health Program got its first memorandum of understanding with the Cambodian government. That's another whole story about what that happens. By 2018, we have 60 psychiatrists supposedly and 40 psychiatric nurses in the country. Point, Cambodia, major lack of mental health services. Okay, now, what are some of the things we've done? You know, just the history of our program before we even had a program. You know, I was the only PhD teaching in the master's program because I was the only PhD living in the country in Cambodia during that time. So that was my job, my side job. At that point, I was working with our Little Sprouts, our HIV program. But on Saturday mornings, I would go teach the students, the first students, you know. And I put in the word clinical psychology and trauma therapy in there because we always have to think about that as part of our mission in Cambodia with the trauma, okay? Oh, okay. Oh, what do I do here? Okay. What's our goal, okay? Our goal is that the mentally ill person live in good health and be free from stigma. Our mission is to promote mental health literacy in communities and to establish support networks for mentally ill patients at health centers and community peers, to support the mentally ill patient to receive proper and effective treatment, and to promote well-being through a livelihood program. You can't talk about mental health in Cambodia, countries like us, without talking about the basic need of food and livelihood. Okay, they go together without a doubt. Where do we do our program? Okay, there we are in Phnom Penh. And you can see, so where our program goes, we go out to various places in Kampong Spur, We go up to Kampong Thom, which is about 3 hours. By the way, that chain that I showed you, the patient came from Kampong Thom, where I just showed you there. That's about a 3.5 hour. She had that chain wrapped around her leg on the bus, and we helped her undo the chain when on the night she showed up at the Missionary of Charities, and the Missionary of Charities called me to help her undo to help her.
Keep on to join the meeting.
So we go up to Kampong Thom, that's where we go too. Why do I pick these places? I pick these places because there is no service there. There is nothing there for the people. Population probably around 5 million people there in the local area. Part of the funding that we receive from Maryknoll is to help people come from these places to get treatment at the hospital here in Phnom Penh. There's no psychiatrist in these areas. There's no local health care for them. And so we ask them, we say, we will help you. And by the way, we have people, some of our patients come all the way from Mondulkiri, which is on the right there, okay? That is about a 6-hour ride, okay? For a chronic disease, who is going to come for treatment consistently 6 hours for the rest of their life to get treatment for a chronic disease, okay? That's the question, you know, that's some of the challenges we have. In Maryknoll's HIV/AIDS work, just to very briefly, we helped establish healthcare, okay, HIV outreach to these parts of the country. And that's why we can say, Maryknoll, thank you. You're one of the big players in HIV in Cambodia, and Cambodia is a rather success story, I would say. Okay, so this is our staff. These are the people, okay? I just want to say to you that and just to explain there, clinical supervisors on the left there, you're seeing maybe the first 2 Cambodian PhDs from a real PhD program in the country, in clinical psychology. And they're still finishing their training. You see Chanton right underneath me, our program coordinator. She's been a Maryknoll friend of ours since she was a little kid, okay? So, and now she's studying her master's program in clinical psychology, along with Tia, who's also there, okay? We have other people that we've studied. So these people are outreaching to the communities throughout every day we work and going to the hospitals. What are our programs? Community mental health literacy program. One of the things that we use the word literacy because these folks here on Buna there, his dissertation was to develop a training program for teachers to teach about mental health in the schools. Another, you know, a side program that we have is our school counseling program, okay? And so these are the 4 areas that we work with in our program, though, the main 4 areas, okay? So what do we try to do? We try to train the health center staff, social workers and peers, okay, about mental health, raising mental health awareness workshop for teachers and students at schools, and raising mental, you know, in the community leaders in the villages. Our treatment program, and I'll have photos of this, you know, we support medical care. Those patients that you see, the only way they were going to get medications, if they need medications, was to come from Kampong Thom and the outlying areas in the Phnom Penh to get treatment. So we facilitate that treatment. And we also have direct counseling, and we have our home care visits, and then we do this client retreat once a year. Let's talk about this, schizophrenia. I believe Maryknoll is the only organization actively reaching out to people with schizophrenia in the country, without a doubt. I mean, there's other NGOs, they work on a clinical basis and things like that, but we see this as the focus of our work, one of the focus. By the way, we are changing the word unchaining program. That is not a respectful word because our people there's no diagnosis of chaining to schizophrenia and all the words, as my staff learns how to deal with things called schizophrenia, okay? Where do we work? The House of Hope. You see number 3 there. The House of Hope is where we visited in November. That's the Missionary of Charities Brothers House, okay? And we also visit Kendall Stung Center. Okay, school counseling program, okay? This has gone into, this was the idea before COVID, okay? All our schools in Cambodia are closed right now. We have 0 school counselors in Cambodia. There is not a school counselor in this country, except in the very rich schools, okay, the Western schools. But school counseling doesn't exist. One of our staff, who's a volunteer, one of Buna there, has developed a program to teach the teachers how to do some of the school counseling. Our livelihood program, and this is connected to us. You know, what I did with the livelihood program is when our HIV program closed, I took 2 of the staff people from the HIV program that worked with livelihood and said, you work with clients with problems of money, and over the years, you know, with HIV, come work and try to work with people with mental illness and to apply those skills in the Cambodian context, you know? And you know what they say to me? They say to me really simple, it's much harder working with somebody who has schizophrenia than working with somebody who has HIV/AIDS. And I said, thank you very much. And then we have discussions about why and how and the challenges of working with livelihood for people who've been chained in the back of their houses. Okay, what are some of the results? Okay, this is for the, actually this would have been for last year, 2019. We went into 37 villages and 2 provinces, psychoeducation for, you know, a total of 60, in a community health literacy program, we had 1,600. Here's some of the places we work. You can see it's pretty basic there, you know. And then, okay, what we've done is we do many trainings, okay? So the health center staff, this is actually the government-run health centers, okay? And we educate the staff of how to deal with them. When I talk about community peers, I'm talking about volunteers in the villages. Our staff can't be everywhere. And so we work with volunteers in the village to train them how to deal with things like depression and anxiety and how to refer people to us. These are some of more pictures. They always said, if you're in Maryknoll, use lots of pictures. So that's what I do. Lots of photos, Maryknoll. You know, this would have been pre-COVID and things like that. Actually, the picture on the top would have been I think the children at that Lavala school, which is a school for physically disabled children in Cambodia. Okay, this is one of our people, okay? That's her, okay? This is what we can do, you see? This is what we can do, you know? That's all I'm gonna say about that photo, okay? That's the joy. This happens not every day, but you know, but the thing is, with our people, we have to go back and forth sometimes because of the nature of our disorder. We're still trying to help him. This is our treatment program, okay? This is the people that come from the countryside, you know, that we treat, you know, or we get to the psychiatrist. We have good relationship with the psychiatrist, you know, and the numbers have been covered right now. But you get the sense of a total of 116 people. And when I say 116 people, that's really 116 families, because these come from separate families, because in our work, we work with the caregiver, the person who cares for the family. This is where the treatment people, on the left is the psychiatrist that you see my staff sitting there on the left with the yellow shirt on there. And then you can see some of the activities. This would have been, these photos here we have, the one on the right would have been our outing with these people, half of them would have been chained 2 years ago. You can't see their faces, right? They would have been unable to walk around outside. Now we take them and a member of their family, and we take them and as we say in Khmer, we daleng, we go around and we spend 2 days, 3 days with them trying to, you know, work with the caregivers and also working with the clients support group, okay? So this is what we have these are, you know, we just do our schizophrenia patients, you know. This is the numbers we have from the schizophrenia. By the way, we have more than this right now, okay? We have more, we probably have about another 30 more now that we have, okay? So, and these are some of the people. I think actually the photo on the two photos here were taken from the trip that we had in November that came, where you see the door, that would be the one from November trip where Maryknoll came to Cambodia. Our retreat program, this is the families together. I wonder if this will show, okay? Okay. These people here are the street people of Cambodia, of Phnom Penh, that put in the center, that are, when we met them first, none of them was able to communicate at all. None of them. They've lost their families, they lost their mental health, they wandered, they were picked up and put in a center. The center had 60 people living in a room together. These people would live together in the same room, okay? And now we have 5 of them, okay? That we have 5 in a room, in the center, the new center. But the human rights group said we should close the old center down, and I agree. But this is where these people, when we met them, I can't explain how incommunicative they were. So, and then here we're back to some more photos, okay? Let's move on to the school counseling for a second, okay? We tried to initiate school counseling programs at Don Bosco Technical School in Lavala. Most of the schools, Lavala is a merit school. They have school counselors, they have people trained. Cambodia doesn't have those. And even in Don Bosco, the Salesian schools, and there are schools throughout the world, they have school counselors, and most of them, but not here in Cambodia. There's no resources, okay? We supported the PhD students, you know, as I've said here, you know, to get their dissertations finished, and here we are in Lavala again, and more training. These are the types of things we support through our program. These are research things, you know, assessing the effectiveness of teacher mental health literacy training in Cambodia, a randomized controlled trial. I can't imagine 10 years ago, 8 years ago, reading these from my students, okay? That these are my students that, you know, so these are the things that we've supported, you know, and we have working with us now in Cambodia, and these are unique for us, okay? I want to talk about the livelihood program because I want to we only have about 5 more minutes, okay? This is our job training, okay? This is where the first year that we did this program, okay? We were able to get our unchained patients, because that's where we go to, you know, to try and get them to to sell groceries, to raising cattle, raising pigs, growing vegetables, recycle garbage, housing support, rather than being chained or being a burden to the family. You know, so, and this is what we do with our livelihood program here. You can see we bring them in, and we always try to talk about, you know, their dignity as people and how that comes. And so this is some of the things we give them on the left and the bottom. And you can see when we talk about the housing, we're trying to help them build toilets in our housing program, okay, with our livelihood program too, oftentimes, okay? Strengths of our program, we have an official agreement with the Department of Health, and boy, that's hard, okay? We have close cooperations with experts, the psychiatrists at Kosamak Hospital. Kosamak Hospital is one of the 2 hospitals in the country that have psychiatrists. We're networking. We have technical support by experts. We have volunteers. and team spirit, working from the heart, okay? That, that's our strength of our program. It's really, and I don't know about organizational structure, good organizational structure. That's a contradiction in my life. I don't have that, but we work it. The difficulties, okay? The difficulties of Maryknoll Mental Health, okay? And no center for mental health clients in the country. There's no center, okay? There's a lack of financial aid for mental health. The budget for mental health is $700,000 for 15 million people. That's the government budget. That's 20 times under what the WHO says should be spent in countries like Cambodia. The lack of human resources, social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, lack of social support for clients, stigma. Maryknoll has had a positive effect in Cambodia with stigma for HIV/AIDS. I mean, if we did anything, we taught about HIV, and there's not really stigma about HIV now. Mental health, it still exists, okay? This is what we planned to do pre-COVID, okay? Just some of the numbers, our community groups who wanted to gather 1,000 adults, train the staff, 120 staff, and our youth and our school workshops, 800 students. These are the goals for this year, with our treatment program. We wanted to continue follow up with 116 clients and maybe 100 new clients for our psychoeducation. Refer to counseling. Let me talk about counseling. My training is as a clinical counselor. There's no clinical counseling. We started, in Cambodia. There's very few places to go, Treatment for our schizophrenia clients, 77, to continue follow up with them, to do group therapy. This is what our goal, group psychoeducation with the family. So it's so important to work with the family. We wanted to do this year. Now the schools are closed, So livelihood, this was our goal for livelihood, housing support, refer clients to short course and life skills. I didn't finish that story that we began today, okay? That story of the unchained legion there, okay? This is how the end of that story goes, okay? I will read it to you. The last verses of the story I started with, okay? Then the people began to beg Jesus to leave their district. As he was getting into the boat, the man who had been possessed pleaded to remain with him, but he would not permit him, but told this man, "Go home to your family and announce to them all that the Lord in his pity has done for you." Go home to your family. I hope that this Maryknoll Mental Health Program can do the same thing that Jesus did, Don't stay with me here. Go home to your family and announce all the good news that the Lord and how God in his pity through Maryknoll Mental Health has blessed us. So I thank you for this opportunity to share. I'm really blessed to have so many friends and family here today too. And I love you all.
Thank you so much, Kevin. There was a lot that you packed in there. Oh my gosh. So we're going to give ourselves a little bit of a chance to kind of absorb it and reflect on it. We're going to go into our breakout rooms now. The reflection question that we're going to ask you to share on is, how does Father Kevin's experience in Cambodia relate to or compare to your own experience of how people with mental illness are accepted and cared for, and how has the pandemic impacted that? We'll get a report back from each of the groups, a takeaway or an insight. Why don't we start with you, Ken? How about in your group? Insight or takeaway?
The mental health conditions that we run into in our own country, and people are often underserved, and there's a big stigma that accompanies mental illness. That's one thing that's still there in spite of a lot of other stigmas in society being lost. And also, one thing we got into was, the older people who were alive during the Pol Pot's regime and his reign of terror, and how that the effects of that have been passed on down to children and grandchildren. I know Dennis brought up this topic of epigenetics, which I'd never heard before, but it's really, what was going on with your mother when she was conceived, and how that's enters your genetic stream and is passed on to you in subsequent generations. That's a fascinating thing that I certainly don't understand, but it's you just wonder how people who've been through such trauma, and they're not just Cambodians, but all over the world, there are people like that, and how that's affecting the generations to come.
Thank you, Ken. Good. Maybe Kevin can comment on that a little bit when we hear from.
Yeah, we've done research on that, and it's really very profound impact on next generation trauma. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that. Luna, what about in your group?
Yeah, thanks. So we talked about how mental health services really differ between city to city and state to state. There are some states that are doing a better job at giving mental health services than other states. But we also talked about, there was some passion towards the end of our conversation about the work that you're doing in Cambodia, Kevin, and just how much opportunity that you're giving to people in Cambodia from mental health to even education. The opportunity that you're giving to individuals is really honorable.
So you started with this program started with this first students in psychology in the country is a pretty historic thing for me. I'm grateful for that. Yeah.
Jerry, how about?
I think we had an excellent group, and I think what came out of it was the recognition that in our own country, with mental health problems, schizophrenia, it's privatized or hidden away. But with Kevin's program, it's family orientated and community based and much more positive. So that was a great insight that the group had. Dan Maloney was very good regarding in our own country, with our police, sometimes they're not trained to deal with mental health situations, and they're more in penalizing people rather than reaching out and offering this type of assistance that Kevin's programs are offering. And I think brought a sense of hope, and it comes out of the love that he has for the people. And Judith would say we have to dedicate ourselves to lobbying for a better response to all of these situations in the world. Good.
Good. Thank you, Jerry. Paul, how about your group? Insight or takeaway?
Sure. We also started with the reality of the legacy of Pol Pot and how that has to be affecting the attitude and the overall mental health and outlook of the people in the country. And then we also talked in our group about how the overall political leadership of any country, including ours, can affect the overall mental health of their citizens. We talked about the value of education, the importance of education, and what you are doing, Father Kevin, in terms of educating people about mental illness and mental health, in terms of very little education that had taken place beforehand, before you and Maryknoll started this program. And then we talked also about our own attitudes, as we just mentioned, attitudes about how we look at mental health, and then how we look at other issues, wider societal issues, such as racism. And we have to start with an honest look in terms of ourselves. And we talked about how mental illness really can lead to or result from isolation. and how our situation now with COVID makes isolation worse. Consequently, it can affect mental illness and making those symptoms worse. Also, we talked about as well the difference in resources, of course. You can't help but notice it, how we here in our country have devoted many resources to mental illness, and we see the positive fruits of that with medicines, with treatment facilities, with the opportunity for people to receive treatment. But how in Cambodia there are so few resources. But before you began this, Father Kevin and Maryknoll and Sister Louise, there was nothing. So now there is something where there is nothing, and it's growing, and we are thankful for that.
Thank you, Paul. Yvonne, how about your group?
Thank you. Some of the things have been mentioned. One of the comments in our group was that, or a collection of, I think, the ideas is that it is interesting that in our country, the solution for mental illness has been jail or being homeless. Those have been kind of the places of, like, it's rather than some of the more broad kind of solutions, and it's gotten worse over the years. It wasn't always true that way, that the jails were the place where the homeless ended up. We also made a connection between domestic violence. Oftentimes mentally ill can be the victims of domestic violence and abuse. We also were rather unique in that no one in our group has a lot of personal kind of experience to relate to, other than just general experience. That was quite different, I think, from other groups. But we did comment, it's like, the health care has been a concern of the church, but perhaps maybe not historically has care of the mentally ill. As many stories as there are in the Bible about the mentally ill, the programs of the church have not seemed to have been as many.
Thank you, Yvonne. Kevin McCarthy.
We talked about some of the same issues as the last group. We were talking about Bay Area and California and all the homeless and people on the streets and the high number of people with mental illness. And then Lefty said, well, we got them on the streets of Seattle. And then Rosemary said, I'm in one of the wealthiest counties in Maryland, and we have a tent city here. So striking in the sense of how the issue is played out around the country. And we also mentioned that it's become an incarceration issue. We also talked about the skyrocketing rates of suicide in the United States, for people who have access to mental health. And finally, how the pandemic has brought out a lot of other feelings of fear, of anger, of isolation.
Thank you, Kevin. And then finally, Leo, how about your group?
We had a great group, and we have the privilege of having Father Kevin with us, but Pam will share.
We talked about the stigma that we have still in our country about mental illness and how it's on a spectrum. It can be, I think most people feel depression, could even be clinical depression, and don't ever get help because they have their families right there with them to take care of them. And how the mental country, by either being incarcerated or being homeless and not getting the services that they need to treat their mental health issues like schizophrenia, being not chained, but being placed in inappropriate facilities like prisons and mental health hospitals, or left homeless on the streets.
Kevin, do you want to some last thoughts or reactions or responses?
I didn't talk about the impact of COVID on Cambodia. Okay, for example, one of the provinces where we work, we've had 110,000 young working Cambodians return without work from Thailand and Vietnam and other places. Okay. They are now in the village. There's no work for them, 110,000. And so ourselves and IOM, the International Organization of Migration, are trying to reach out to them with IOM and Maryknoll. We have the human resources, they have the money, and to try and collaborate with them. But 110,000. Secondly, Bishop Olivier said one day a while back, since you talk about the church and mental health, we don't have a cathedral in Cambodia. It was destroyed Pol Pot, okay? And all the churches were destroyed. And he's pointing out, looking at the new land that he has bought, okay? And he's saying, over there will be the Catholic hospital, and over there, and he's pointing to these different places, and over there will be the cathedral. He said, we're going to build the cathedral there. Then he says, we're going to have a green space. And then he looks right at me in front of all the priests. And he says, and right here, over there, will be Father Kevin's mental health program and building. And I said, wow, Olivier.
Good, good. Did you want to add anything to the question about the intergenerational or genetic impact in terms of trauma on mental health, and particularly coming out of the genocide with Pol Pot?
Yeah, trauma and poverty, they go together. I really think that, we can see it in the lack of just the thinking skills and the freedom to even think. Just because Pol Pot ended doesn't mean that the attitude ended, and the mentality ended, I mean, in parts of the country, Khmer Rouge soldiers, former Khmer Rouge soldiers are 7 out of 10 of the males, in that part of the country. So it's not, the idea can live on, and things like that. Am I saying it has control? No, 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 no. Okay, I'm not saying that at all. But the facts are that, that we, it still has an impact, 40 years mentally on the thinking of the people and their ability to create themselves, and I think that, that they're struggling with trying to be able to have a free thinking, free politics, and everything else, just to have the freedoms that we consider as part of life. So, and the other thing is we have to talk about the impact of China, okay, here in Cambodia, okay, parts of our country are becoming like a colony of China. So that's also definitely, you can read about that in New York Times and everything, the billions of dollars China is investing in Cambodia. So anyways, but no, mental health and is really such an important thing, for our people. And we're in the crosshairs in many ways between East and West still. So I pray for us too.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for joining us. This has been amazing and great. And really, having had the chance to visit you there, I think you really did a wonderful job of giving people a sense through the technology of Zoom to get a sense of who you are and the work you do there.
One question was, how much is spent by the government on mental health for the year, okay? The annual budget is $700,000, okay, for 15 million people. That's like less than a penny, okay? So it's nothing. So that's what we get here.
I have a question for Kevin.
Sure, go ahead.
How do you take good care of your own mental health?
Yeah, you're asking a great question. Part of it, I'll be honest, especially this time, is our team here, okay? We have a consistent way of supporting each other. Maryknoll, Cambodia, lay missioners, priests and sisters. And I can say this right now, I'm feeling more of that support and care for ministry together than we did traditionally, because of the nature of the challenges we're going through now, because, there are, many challenges for all of us, and the questions we have to ask ourselves, so we do gather together. So for me, locally, that's a really important thing, and I'd also say that you know, I've got some good relationships with friends here and even some Zoom friends and things like that, but it's definitely different.
I'd like to add just a couple of thoughts about Kevin's program that we all kind of alluded to, but didn't focus it on directly. When I was in Cambodia for 5 years, my ministry was with youth, and we taught critical thinking skills and community development to university students. And one of the big gaps that the students expressed was that they had all these elderly grandparents, and many of them were dying off, and none of them would speak about their life under the Khmer Rouge. They were just too horrified to even bring that up. And the students wanted to know, because they said, if they die, we don't have their memories. We don't know what really happened to them, so that we can prepare not to repeat the same. And so the students started a program, and one part of it was going out into the villages, trying to interview grandparents so that they could collect their stories. But they also knew that as they did this, they would raise so many fearful feelings on the part of the grandparents, and a lot of trauma would be increased. And so they invited Father Kevin, who was really a rare resource in Cambodia, to accompany them so that he could be there to deal with the trauma that could be, that would arise. And so he accompanied the students many times to help them in that endeavor. And I know that that was a very successful program for the NGO, the Cambodian NGO, where I had my ministry, because of Father Kevin's participation and his leadership in that. And so that's another thank you to him, because now those stories are being recounted and retold and written, and the students have learned from their own grandparents, and they picked up enough nerve to go home and ask their parents about what happened to them, what they recalled, even though they were young children. So thank you again, Kevin, for all that you contributed and continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta. The person who started that program was my first student, one of my first students, okay? And he was late getting his internship hours in. And I was getting angry at him and say, you're not getting your internship hours. I said, well, I'm trying to do something else. And here he was putting a program literally in the killing fields for 100 old people with the youth that came and tried to serve them. And besides collecting stories, they collected the bones that were still in the fields, okay, and put them in the place where they would, the remains would be buried in that village. And that was day number 1. So that's youth ministry, literally going into the fields where they would pick up bones of their loved ones, and people at the thousands. One place had 50,000 people killed in that village, in that field. I mean, you know, you can't do this in Cleveland, folks. You know, I mean, you know, it's like, it's a unique kind of opportunity. And you can, we do have some videos on that, Roberta, on YouTube and things like that about that work. I think if you find this YRDP and then, yeah, that program, so it's out there.
With Unthea, yeah. Kevin, you've done wonderful work in Cambodia, and I hope you can continue for many more years to impart your skills and knowledge, not only to the students, but also with the mental health people that are learning under your direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberta.
Nice to see you again, Father Kevin. Marie ran here.
Hi, Marie.
It was a great trip we had in November, and we saw Father Kevin's mental health program and visited. It was wonderful.
It was, and I remember some of the people we visited, Marie, and how the challenges to get there, even walking to get to their houses, and visiting people, and all the visitors are wondering, oh, well, we're going to visit people who might be in these inhumane circumstances, but they were totally excited to have the visitors, and that somebody would recognize them and come to visit their house. And that visit helped with the stigma, because that house there that we visited were places where people didn't want to go because there's a mentally ill person there.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And now the foreigner coming, giving respect to the house, it helped it tremendously in that village.
Have there been any studies of the relationship between the trauma of the Pol Pot regime and all of that and mental illness?
Well, the names that come to mind are Nigel Fields, okay? Fields, okay? But also you should know that Maryknoll, we sponsored the first national survey of mental health in Cambodia, okay, in 2012. We were the seed money, you know, others came in, but my Asia South local groups, I said, we don't have any money. And I'm sitting at a meeting and they said, well, Tom O'Brien says to me, here's $5,000. Do that research, do that study, you know, I mean, and so that's what happens, you know, when they see the need. And so that research still continues even 8 years later, you know, to be analyzed because we have a database, 2,700 random sample people, you know, throughout the country. First time ever that happened in Cambodia. So yeah, and trauma is part of that research, okay, so.
I wonder if you could speak to the experience of the families and the community upon the unchaining of a patient.
Yeah, you change the life of one person, you help that person, that whole village gets better. Now, I don't actually, you know, I can't measure it how much better, but, you know, if you take one person that's been running around the village and one person who's been screaming at 2 o'clock in the morning and you help them and you get the medications for them and you teach that group, the stress level in that whole village goes down. Can we say that? That would be safe to say, yeah. You know? I mean, and so because it has you know, the fact that that person's mentally ill screaming in their village has an impact on the whole village. And
right.
We have signs, okay, like that I could show you, that in Khmer, that when you go into a village, like, you know, beware of dog, you know, we have beware of mentally ill person, and the sign that when you go into the village, that's what the stigma is, you know. And so whoever those people are, that's you know, that's the treatment. And so when we help that person, that whole village gets better, and it's amazing to see that, you know. So
but did you encounter
the health workers don't know their names, you know. I mean, even in the local, they know who they are, you know, because they see them, you know. You can't miss our people. They're running around the villages, they're trained and all this other stuff. It's not there hidden, you know. So, you know, so we're working through the health workers too, but because our people take a lot of time to work, you just don't do it in a 50-minute office visit,
right?
You know.
Did you encounter any initial resistance, for example, on the part of the family or on the part of the community, resistance to the unchaining?
I would say this: it's not. Look, when you have somebody to unchain them, okay, that's physically unchaining is the easiest thing. Okay, I mean, that's not hard. It's all the other things that happen around it, you know. Where do you take the person? They need safety, you know. How do you get those things? All those care things that you, Jerry, know so well, you know, that you need, that we don't have in Cambodia. And so, and the NGOs, like we have many NGOs that work with, you know, different groups, but they won't take our people because our people are violent sometimes, you know, and things like that. And that's a problem, you know. So, so I've been shut out of many, you know, and this is a reality in the US too. Don't get me wrong. I understand that totally. Okay. But it's like really profound here, you know. I mean,
how are you connecting with people now during COVID? Are you using technology?
Actually, we took 2 weeks off and it was, you know, just to say that there will be 2 million children in Cambodia that won't be able to go to school, you know, because they don't have technology. Okay, so the use of technology in places like we work is very different than what maybe people in the U.S. might understand. Okay, and I would say that we're trying to use it, adapt it for us here, but our people are literally still in the fields. You know, I mean, we are out there responding to the people. as the health ministry has asked us to reach out to COVID, to teach, we spend when we have a session on mental health, the first 15 minutes are about washing your hands and wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And all those type of things, and social distancing, which is like a contradiction in terms for Cambodia. This doesn't happen. The first comment I said was, if they social distance, don't go out, well, they'll starve to death. That would be the impact if if you stayed home. Don't go to the market. Well, that means those people are going to starve here. And they have to go and get food. So that's it. So, but yeah, we're doing, but we are I'll show you photos, Kathy, of our folks that are, we're 6 feet apart and things like that when we have our meetings and things like that. Okay, we really are. We're doing those things. We have no local transmission though. They can't figure out why. We had our first COVID case show up in January from Wuhan. You've heard of Wuhan, I mean, we know this. January 28th, and yet we can't figure out why. And it was a Chinese person, as you might imagine, but it was all they're so isolated because they're in Sihanoukville running the casinos. He's making Sihanoukville into the Macau of Southeast Asia, and so maybe they're so isolated that they didn't, connect to anybody, to the Cambodians. That's the only thing we can say, But why we don't have local, I don't know, But you need $3,000 now to come to Cambodia to get here. If you wanted to come, you'd have to pay, besides all the other fares, $3,000 and put it in at the airport so that you can spend your 14 days and start to pay your expenses for your visit to Cambodia. I don't think people are coming to Cambodia soon with $3,000 plus insurance that you need to, to buy, for COVID insurance and things like that.
Kevin, are you saying there are no cases of COVID in Cambodia?
Local transmission, no, they catch them all at the airport. I'm not kidding you. And the other thing is, we have a very young population, I mean. And so that's the other thing, is like we have 15 million people, but again, all the old folks were killed, 2% over the age of 60 and everybody younger. And so, so it's, so even the impact, would be different maybe, but the impact right now is on the migrants, the ones who have come back. Yeah. Okay, that's where, we have 110,000 people returned from Thailand and other places, you wonder why, but they're in isolation, which isolation are basically, they took the desk out of the schools and you sleep 6 feet apart from each other in the schools, and our schools are closed till next year, and whereas Vietnam and Thailand, they've opened their schools or are attempting to open them. Although I should say that the very top schools will open, the 10 international schools will open in August, as following your rule.
Father Kevin, I did some, I'm also in the health field, and I did some research in preparation for your talk, and I saw that the Cambodian government total annual expenditure for mental health is an astoundingly low 0.02% of the total healthcare expenditure in the country. So mental health is very limited resources in Cambodia. And so I think that the models that you're creating, I hope will stimulate a much more interest within the Ministry of Health for mental health treatment. I'm confident that it will.
I believe that the health system has been traumatized too, okay? And I really feel that the political system has been traumatized in many ways. And so, it gets wrapped up in political talk, but I believe we have trauma throughout the country. And then it's hard to try and do treatment if everybody is traumatized, I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt of people at the top, but yeah, no, right now though, Jim, I would say that the Ministry of Health is very much understands that we have to reach out. And when I go to a meeting in the province, they're saying we need the mental health to reach out to these 110,000 newly returned people, for example. You know, we know we'll have more people die of suicide than we will of COVID here in Cambodia, probably. Okay.
Say, Father Kevin, do you have, in your ministry with the mentally ill, do you have access to enough medicine? Is that something, and the latest in psychiatric and schizophrenic treating medications, how is that going for you?
No, we are one of the low and middle income countries. And so we have the older medications, the cheap medications that have more side effect medications. That's actually one of the controversies. So this one NGO has the newer ones, and there's a whole fight because it's an economic $700,000. You know, if it costs $16 a month for a box of risperidone, for example, you know, to start treatment with that, that's just impossible. You know, and that's a better medication for our people. You know, but $16, that's $800. What is it a year? How much that would be a year? You know, 16 times, you know, what, $200. That's not. I mean, I know that doesn't sound like much for U.S., but here that's $16 a month would be a lot for those new meds. So
I'm wondering if you're able to access any grants from the World Health Organization or other groups like that for medications and things, for treatments.
Yeah, we'd have to do that through the Ministry of Health, the government, but we try to work through the government system here. We're in the middle kind of ground between NGOs and government, and it's a very important role we have here, okay, to be a bridge between these two realities, okay, because Maryknoll has been respected in Cambodia for 30 years now. We're just moving it into a mental health field that is still in very much a need, you know, as we handed over our HIV program, you know. So we really need, to work on that, the basic medications and basic community care too, and everything. Yeah, no doubt about that. We need all of it here. Newer medications. There are times through Maryknoll, we will buy those other medications for people, you know, because I mean, it's just terrible to give them the older medications. And, you know, I'm not a medication person. You know, I think medications are a last resort, okay? But I see they help people, you know? I mean, they help many of the people we have, you know? So, and they would be on them in the United States as well, too. So, you know.
It sounds like you could use a contribution to your mission account. Is your mission account open for contributions? Can we send you some?
Hey, Marie Wren, what do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. It's well-deserved work. Okay.
And as I mentioned, we'll send you a link with anybody who wants to make a contribution, how to do that to support Kevin's ministry.
That'd be great. So I think, though, I just would like to talk about prayer, you know, for a second, because I really just think that, you know, just the need to pray, you know, the coping strategies and things like that we talked about earlier. You know, this is a time to pray. It's time to be still, you know, and to listen to the voice of God, calling us God's loving children, you know, and you know, we continue to do the work, and but it's got to come from a deeper sense of mission and commitment, you know, and a love that God. This is the call that God has given us, you know, to serve God's poor, the poorest of the poor. In the link here, I used that photo of you know, for the advertisement for this, and it's got two of my staff out in the field with one half-naked woman, okay? She is out there, and I called it the Fields Afar in Mental Health. You know, Maryknollers should understand what that means, you know? I mean, it's the Fields Afar in Mental Health. That's where our staff is working, you know? I mean, literally sometimes in the fields afar. So I hope we continue to support them and pray for them.
Thank you, Kevin. It's probably a good place to end for tonight. Hopefully we can get you back for another webinar soon to continue the discussion. Feels like we just barely scratched the surface. I want to thank again everybody for participating. And as I mentioned, you'll get an email with the next upcoming one and some other information. We wish everybody to stay well, enjoy your evening, and restful night. So thank you for joining us. And again, Kevin, thank you.